Howdy folks, this is Jim and I'm in Texas, and we're going to learn, or I'm going to demonstrate, because I already know, how to change the oil in an FJR. So let's talk about what you need to change the oil in an FJR. First of all, you need an FJR. Fortunately, I have one. If you don't, keep saving, you'll have one too someday. Everybody wants an FJR. Here's what you need. Here's everything you need to do it. You need the FJR. You need a torque wrench. The torque spec for the drain plug is 31 pounds per inch. This is a Harbor Freight special, so I back it off to about 28 because I'm kind of chicken. To get it off, I use a regular wrench, 17 millimeter socket. So those are really the two wrenches you need. We're going to have to take off one little screw to hold it, to bend back a body panel just slightly, so you need a 4 millimeter hex driver to do that. You need paper towels. You need aluminum foil, and we'll see why in a minute. You need a funnel, and you need an oil filter, and don't forget the crush washer when you go to buy the filter. Don't forget the crush washer. Right now I'm using an OEM filter because this bike's under warranty, but I'll talk about why this is probably the last Yamaha OEM I'm going to buy. And you need 4 liters of oil. Usually I buy a 4-liter jug of castor oil 1040 motorcycle oil, because it's 4 liters, it fills it up perfectly, but Pet Boys was all out of those, so I got 4 quarts of synthetic. I decided to splurge and get synthetic oil, synthetic motorcycle oil, and I have a little bit of extra oil that I can top it up to get that last 0.26 liters into the bike to make it the correct fill. And I'm going to use this oil filter wrench, the Yamaha filter. Even though the owner's manual shows a nut on the oil filter to make it easy to put on and off, it's a spin-on type like a car. It really doesn't, the OEM filters don't really have that. The K&N filters do. So the next filter is K&N, because we'll probably see this is sort of PIA to use. So anyway, let's reposition and let's get ready to change our oil. Now you know what it takes to do it. Okay. I've run the engine. To the point that it's at its normal operating temperature, which of course you should do anytime you change the oil on an internal combustion engine. And I'm going to recycle this oil. Here in Texas, anybody who does oil changes is supposed to be willing to recycle. And at least Pet Boys, anywhere where I usually go for this kind of thing, has always never complained about taking my used oil. Okay, Yamaha's a really easy motorcycle to change the oil. The drain plug's right here. It falls readily to hand. Okay. Loosey, righty tighty. Okay. You got to be careful. This is aluminum. It's a steel plug on aluminum, and you don't want to overdo it. Make sure you're turning it the right way. Important safety tip. Notice I have a cardboard box here to kind of catch the overspill, which is certain to happen. You don't want to drop the drain plug into the little hole in the recovery tank here. So I'm unscrewing the drain plug. It didn't use any oil. This is just about, I'm actually changing it at about 3,600 miles. The interval's 4,000, but I've got a big ride coming up in April. I want to be ready for it. Okay. I did not drop the drain plug into the oil recovery thing. Well, it's nice and clean looking too. And it didn't use a drop in almost 4,000 miles, which is the normal oil change interval for this machine. Not like my FJR. I mean, excuse me, my Ninja over there that drinks oil like it was water, but that's just a design difference. And while it's tapering off, I'm going to take, there's a bolt, with a 4mm hex head in it, hex socket in it, that holds this little piece of plastic to the side of the bike. I'm going to take that out while the oil's finishing draining, and you'll see why in a second here. The only thing that's remotely challenging about an FJR oil change is just the oil filter. You know, if you get a K&N filter that has a nut on the end, it'll be like a million times easier. But if you were to just do what the owner's manual said and just pull this filter off, it's an automotive spin-on type. What would happen is this fairing here would you'd get oil into this fairing here, and you don't want that. So that's where the aluminum foil comes in. And we make a little kind of a channel here. So usually you can almost do it by hand, but to remove the filter. But I have not been able to find a really good size oil filter wrench that really fits. Well, get off of there, you bastard. There we go. Okay. Can. Notice the aluminum foil is totally catching most of this oil. Now I'll put that in there so that it'll drain into our recovery device. And hopefully this aluminum foil is channeling most of the oil that's coming out of there. I'll put a piece of paper in here too. Okay, I'm about ready to put on the new filter. You know, my doctor has, in the process of trying to lose a little weight, because it's consensus of my medical staff that I need brand new replacement knees. However, they will not install my new knees until I lose about 10 or 15 more pounds. So rolling around the floor like this is very difficult for me. But I'll just man up and bear with the pain. I can't put my knees on this concrete or they just like collapse. Here's the OEM filter. This is the Yamaha filter. Very carefully, don't cross thread it. Really, with a nut I could use a torque wrench to get this to the exactly right torque setting. Okay, now we're ready to replace the drain plug. A lot of people just use the same crush washer that came with the bike new for 1,000,000 miles, but they're not expensive. I usually get a new one every time I change the oil. What? If you don't know, this is an oil drain plug, and there's a little washer. I mean, you get a screwdriver to pop it off now that I think about it. There's a little washer. And I always have to look, I have to get up in a second, look at a picture on the web, because there's a right way and a wrong way to put it on. You can see if you look close, it's asymmetrical. One side is a little raised from the other, and it crushes and makes a better seal, so you're less likely to get a drip. I'm going to have to get up and pop this off with a screwdriver, and I want to take a look at the picture to be sure I get the washer back on. I'll be right back. Okay, alright. If this is the drain bolt, the flat side of the crush washer goes against the engine case. The hump side goes against the head of the bolt. The pipes are still a little warm. You don't want to touch them with your fingers. Okay, things going in very smoothly. Grab the torque wrench. If you've never used a torque wrench, there's several different kinds. I mean, real mechanics now use digital ones. This is a mechanical one. It will click once when the bolt reaches this desired tightness, and that's when you want to stop. Let's see, it's set to tighten. Okay, I'm just torquing it on there. Still not needing much resistance. Starting to get a little resistance here. Let's go a little bit further. Don't want to rush this. Anytime it should click. Click soon, I may chicken out. There we go. Here to click. Torqued. That's all there is to that. Engine's on. Now, one last step. You don't want to forget it, and it's been known to happen. Checking the sight gauge here, I see there's no oil in this bike. So let's put some oil in it. Oh, I can sit up for this thing, God. All right. Oh, my knees. Oh, shit. I hate being on the concrete. You know, I know what you're asking yourself. You're saying, why didn't you get Tracy to come do this for you? And believe me, the thought crossed my mind anytime I come anywhere near this bike with a wrench. I always think, well, what bribe would Tracy take to come in and help with this? But I think I can handle this okay. And poor Tracy's up in tornado country. For those of you who maybe don't live in the United States or don't follow what's going on in the Midwest, they're being absolutely devastated by killer tornadoes and monster hailstorms. So I suspect that Tracy has his hands full right now. And so I'm not going to ask him to come change my oil for me. I mean, I'm sure if I asked nicely, he'd drive the 400 miles from my house to his house just to change my oil. Because he's a nice guy, but I'm not going to take advantage of it. And I need to get a pair of needle noses to turn that knob. This pair of pliers dates back to the 20s. It belonged to my grandfather. I really like it because when I use this, I have a few of his tools, and when I use it, I really feel like, you know, I'm connected to him somehow or another. It doesn't have any markings on it, but it's really good quality, and it's heavy as all get out. There's a name there. I can't read it though. But all I want to do is just turn the oil knob a little bit. Normally, you don't go anywhere near a high-performance machine with pliers or with a crescent wrench. And it's Article 15 in the Air Force if you go after an airplane with a crescent wrench or a pair of pliers. Okay. And now, just a question pouring in some oil. 4T 10W40 fully synthetic motor oil. There might be somebody out there who doesn't understand what's different about motorcycle oil, and the answer is not a lot. But a lot of car oil, if you have a motorcycle with a dry clutch like a Ducati where there's no oil involved with the clutch, I think you can just use car oil. But when most Japanese motorcycles anyway have a wet clutch, which means the clutch is in the oil pan, is being oiled by the same oil that oils the engine. And you don't want your clutch, if you get most car oils have additives that are there to reduce friction more, and you'll know if it says energy saving and the little if there's a little circle that says energy saving on it, that can make your clutch slip if you put that kind of oil in here. I mean, it won't break the bike, but it'll harm your clutch performance. So that's really the main difference between motorcycle oils and car oils, as far as I know. With a motorcycle oil, you're sure you can use it with a wet clutch. In fact, it even says that on the bottle here, wet clutch safe or something like that. And demo team comes into town. The Victory demo team was here the other day for the North Victory dealer. That's right about a block from my house, and I forgot to go ride a Victory. But he's going to the South Victory dealer, I think, in next weekend. So I may do that. I'm tempted to want to try to ride their Vision, which is their, you know, their big, gigantic, cruising, monstrous motorcycle. It's a really good motorcycle. They've done real well on Iron Butt, and those Victory engineers have ridden them, have gotten all the Iron Butt certificates. So it's obviously, you know, a reasonable cruiser style bike for somebody who wants to ride more than wants to pass the bars. Side bags are a little smallish from when I just looked at one of the dealer, but they got all the bells and whistles. Like they got cruise control, which God, this bike ought to have. I was about to start the bike up when I remembered something important. This is a shaft drive bike, and it's got a oil in the differential you can change. There have been manufacturers who have made differentials where you couldn't change the oil, and it resulted in massive, extremely expensive differential failures from people who should have known better. BMW. Honda recommends changing the rear drive oil every other oil change, but it's so easy to do and doesn't cost much. It just uses heavy gear oil. I use a Mobil 1. And it's 200 milliliters of heavy gear oil. It changes just like the oil. There's a drain plug at the bottom and an add plug up on the side there. I don't know how much this you'll really be able to see, but so the only difference is it's the same size nut and everything. The only difference is 17 pounds of torque is the recommended setting. And again, I back off a pound or so because I'm chicken shit. So I've got to change that too. The main thing to do is not get oil all over your tire. You still got a plastic bag there to try to keep oil from getting on the tire. If I have to explain why oil on a motorcycle tire is bad, then I think I've failed totally in attracting an audience. Anyway, let's go ahead and, this is just like draining the oil, only easier. Just undo the drain plug on the bottom of the differential. Let the old gear oil drain out. Put in 200 milliliters in the top drain plug, and you can just look in there. Basically, the fill mark is it fills up to the edge of the drain plug, so it's real easy to tell. And then torque everything back together, and you're in business. So let me do this, and then we'll start it up and leak check it. Okay, I'm about ready to start this puppy up. Change the final drive oil. One thing for FJR orders I suggest is when you put in that little fairing screw that holds that little plastic under the oil filter back to the bike, I always use a little Loctite on something like that. Of course, you don't use Loctite on oil drain plugs. So I change the final drive oil, change the engine oil, and put on a new filter. I'm looking in there and I see oil in the side gauge, so I see empty oil cans, so I'm pretty sure I remembered to do it. Alrighty, well, let's just start it up and see what happens. Alrighty. Do we see any leaks? Let's take a close look at the oil filter. Don't see any dripping there. Not much smoke. I think I did better this time at keeping oil away from the pipes than I have in maybe at another time. There's no reason to drip oil in the pipes when you do this oil change properly, but it's not impossible if you're not paying attention. Well, I'm wearing shorts and flip-flops. Think I ought to hop on it and take it around the block a couple of times. Well, I think I will take it around the block, but I'm going to tempt the gods and clean the mess up, take a shower, then maybe when I put some proper riding clothes on, I'll ride it somewhere as a final check. By the way, just one little personal note, my Ninja over there is probably going to be sold, and it's going to be sold cheap because of its mechanical and body damage that it's got. It's not mechanical damage, just mechanical illness. So I'm going to sell that pretty cheap pretty soon. I'm going to miss it, but I just don't have the time or energy to kind of fool with it. I do want a smaller, lighter, around town bike, but that's not in the immediate future, but hopefully within the span of my lifetime I'll get a second smaller bike. Not that there's anything against the FJR, it's just having the right tool for the job. My wife called me just now and said, hey, we need hard candy for the tax office. Well, the FJR is the wrong bike for that mission, going down to the grocery store, grabbing a bag of hard candy and taking it to your wife. The Ninja would have been perfect for that if it had running right. That's what I'm talking about. Alrighty, well, no leaks so far. This is Jim in Texas. I just changed the engine oil and the final drive oil on my Yamaha FJR.